make it happen. You come back from the brink of hell. Kind of in a love triangle situation right now. And to help illustrate what needs to happen this next week for each team to make the playoffs, I have this nice white.
Jesus.
This one's for you. How did they not figure this out? The reason the game is dying, the reason the fan base is shrinking, is because no one can watch your product. The NBA title is between the Suns, but that's valid his legacy.
Divorce is tough, man.
I guess, yeah. Divorce is hard. Poor guy. Hopefully he gets to kiss his son on the lips. Anyways, welcome back to the most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. This is Swivel Chair Sports. I am your host, Zach Burkle, here with my co-host today, Aaron and Siege, and hopefully Joe joins us later on this episode. But go ahead and say hi, guys.
How's it going?
Hi, guys.
All right, so before we get started, just want to remind you that if you enjoy our content, make sure to like and subscribe. That'd be much appreciated. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with some college basketball. Biggest thing on everybody's plate in the college basketball realm right now has to do with the Alabama Crimson Tide. With their basketball team, they've kind of went through a bit of drama recently, you may call it, where
I don't know what to call it, felony drama.
yeah, why don't you go ahead and explain, Aaron, because I'm not too versed on all the details.
I don't.
You don't know much about it?
All I know is Alabama player killed another guy and got kicked off the team, and supposedly another one might have been involved, might not have been. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
That has been resolved in court.
Yeah.
We'll touch it.
So.
I'll touch it. No, I'll touch it.
Okay, go ahead, Siege.
So apparently, the guy that supposedly supplied the weapon, his intro was him getting patted down. He's been doing it all year, but in lieu of the recent events, it kind of got some attention, and now there's a big uproar of why is he getting patted down in the pregame intros and all this stuff. So.
Yeah, so star player for the Alabama Crimson Tide, Brandon Miller. He was allegedly involved in some sort of situation that resulted in somebody's passing, and the allegations against Brandon Miller are that he was the driver of the vehicle that supplied the weapon to the attacker. The biggest question on everybody's mind right now seems to be whether or not it's okay for Brandon Miller to be participating in basketball right now with everything going on, and how this case has, as you guys noted earlier, this case has not yet been resolved. So we're trying to be very careful with our wordings and stuff revolving around this situation. But as far as your guys' opinion goes, Aaron, do you think what are your thoughts on Brandon Miller participating in basketball activities with all of this going on? Do you think maybe there should be more investigation by the Alabama board, or just go ahead and give us your opinion on the situation, I guess?
Well, I've kind of a question before I answer this. Where did this alleged crime happen?
I believe it was in somewhere in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, maybe.
Was it on campus?
I am not sure. I can try to get you the details for that. I don't believe so. I think it was at a nightclub, but don't quote me on that. Um, Alabama.
Because I mean, pretty much all universities have a no firearm policy. So
Right.
if that firearm was ever on campus
So,
and he was on campus with it, then I think it's a no-brainer that he shouldn't be.
right.
But
Yeah, It,
you know,
it says it happened at the Strip in Tuscaloosa.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't
So
know
yeah,
what
I thought it was at a club or something, or somewhere downtown. I didn't think it was on campus. Um, and I think what the Brandon Miller's attorney, if I heard this right, again, this is all alleged, um, but what Brandon Miller's attorney was saying was that he, I don't want to get the words wrong, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. But something about Miller maybe not knowing the gun was in the vehicle, uh, but there are a lot of people also pointing out that the way the attorney worded it made it seem like just the legal way of saying trying to get him out of it, and that it'd be really difficult for Brandon Miller not to have known the gun was in the vehicle. Apparently, there was also a text message between the alleged attacker and Brandon Miller. There was allegedly a text message that referenced or where the attacker was asking Brandon Miller to bring him his joint, I think was the wording on the text message. And then Brandon Miller uh, proceeded to drive to the location that this alleged attacker was at. Whether or not he had the gun in the vehicle or anything like that, I don't know. I don't want to wrongly accuse anybody of doing anything, but that's essentially what the story is that the attacker texted allegedly the alleged attacker allegedly texted Brandon Miller to bring his joint, assuming the joint is in reference to a firearm, and then allegedly Brandon Miller drove the car where the firearm was at, allegedly, to the alleged location to drop off to the alleged attacker. So
you're trying real hard not to get sued here.
I am trying. I am trying so hard. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how I'm supposed to be wording this stuff, but I am trying so hard to not say anything out of line. But
So I'll just put it this way:
okay,
if
yeah,
he
put a bow
broke
on
the
it.
policy, then no, he should not be playing. But other than that, he's innocent until proven guilty. I mean, you've seen it so many times with these college football players. They get accused of rape, and then they're exonerated. 3 years later, and their career's ruined. They've got
Right.
no shot.
Right.
So
Sean
I'm a
Oakley,
big fan of
an
the
example of
innocent.
that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, and especially because it's not like they're making a fuck ton of money right now.
Yeah.
I know they're getting what they can from NIL, but it's not going to hurt anybody, especially if they become or are presumed innocent. Then that hurts no one.
Right. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add to this siege? I mean, honestly, I was just trying my best to explain the situation without putting us in any sort of legal, uh, whatever.
alleged
Fine.
legal bind.
Yeah, bind. Thank
Yeah, no, I don't have anything. But I mean, I think we can move on to the bigger picture of what's going on. It's March. March
Yes,
Madness
sir.
is around the corner, so
you. Yes, sir. March Madness is right around the corner. Obviously, the teams are kind of finishing up their regular season play. I think this next week and a half or so, and then go into conference tournament play after that. But Right after that, we'll get right into the Selection Sunday in March. I think Selection Sunday comes after the conference tournaments, if I'm not mistaken. And then we'll get on to the tournament and stuff like that, and we'll get to really have some fun, make some brackets. We'll do that on the podcast as well. We'll show our brackets on the podcast. We won't be making our brackets because that would be a little ridiculous. That might take a little while. But um, with March Madness being right around the corner, Aaron, you being our college basketball expert, I'll call you for lack of
I would
anybody
know
being
that.
anywhere close to your knowledge. I would assume, unless Siege is
I would,
pretty knowledgeable in that realm, but me not so much. So, what are some teams that we should maybe look out for going into March Madness? I know UCLA is kind of starting to heat up recently. Obviously, KU, Houston, Alabama, like we just talked. Alabama, all those five teams have been really successful this year. They seem to be trending upward. What are some other teams outside of those top five that we should maybe look at as jumping up into the rankings, maybe finishing as a better seed than we might expect at this point in the season?
um, well, I don't know about jumping up in the rankings. Obviously, I think Missouri should end the year probably in the top 20 somewhere. Not in the top 20, but like 20 to 25 somewhere in there. Uh, Probably not much higher than that. That's probably pushing it a little bit. But then Texas A&M, I think they're a sneaky good team. They had a real struggle pre-conference, but they really locked it in. They're a really good defensive team, and they're really good at rebounding. So I think that's a safe bet to a team to make some noise in the tournament.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of those Big 12 and SEC teams that you could see jumping up here in these rankings here. I mean, just to name off a few, I mean, we got Tennessee at 11 or 12 has been really consistent this year. K State at 11, been a tough out. Texas at 9, Baylor at 7. You go a little bit further down the list, you got TCU at 22, Kentucky sneaking in at 23 with Texas A&M at 24, and then just on the outside looking in right now, you also got looks like Iowa State, um, Missouri, Arkansas. So just it's there's a lot of Big 12 and SEC teams that seem to be trying to make a run at maybe a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 berth this year. Uh, I'm gonna make a really kind of bold prediction right now, even before seeing Selection Sunday, before seeing the brackets. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we're gonna see at least a quarter of the Sweet 16 is gonna be SEC Big 12, but I could really see half the Elite Eight being SEC Big 12 teams right now. Um, I mean, obviously you got Alabama and Kansas, who are almost destined to make the Elite Eight. Then you got K State, who's been a really tough team this year. Tennessee also. So there's four right there easily could be in the Elite Eight. If it's not those four teams, you also got Baylor and Texas, like I referenced earlier. I mean, there's just a slew of teams in the Big 12 and the SEC. Those seem to be the two powerhouse conferences this year. Typically it's the Big 10 and the ACC. The ACC you get North Carolina, you get Duke, you get Clemson from time to time, not so much. And then the Big 10 you get Michigan State. Michigan's been pretty consistent the last few decades. Indiana, whenever they're playing well. You do have Purdue this year, but definitely not like the amount of Big Ten and ACC teams towards the top that I think we're used to seeing. What do you think, Siege? What have you seen so far in your knowledge of college basketball that whatever you may have in that? What teams are maybe ones that you're looking out for going down the stretch here?
Some teams that I'm looking out for. The main team that I'm looking out for is Miami. Miami, they they weren't picked to be like super great at the beginning of the year, and they've been on a roll. I mean, they're 23-6. I think they just dropped their last game, but they've been playing very well. The team basketball that they're playing in Miami is pretty impressive. and I think that they have what it takes to make a little bit of run in this tournament this year. Um, Also, first off, Big 12 is the best basketball conference there is, and it's not even close. So
ACC has
don't.
Duke and North Carolina. I just don't see how you can beat
Yeah,
them.
but the Big 12 has Kansas, Baylor. We're gonna get Houston. We got K State. I mean, TCU when they're healthy looks unreal, and they all beat up on each other. So they're. It's not like one team is like way above the rest. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like
mean,
TCU beat Kansas this year.
I would agree
They
that
beat
K
Baylor.
State this year, or I mean not K State. I would agree that the Big 12 this year is probably the best basketball conference.
They've been the best for a few years.
I don't
I'm
know.
just kidding. That's not. It's not even an argument. But um, yeah. But the other thing that we can talk about also is like these other teams that are consistently just like doing really well in the tournament. Like for instance, like Xavier, Providence, those types of teams.
Yeah,
Like
the
I
Big
mean,
East and the
Even St. Mary's is usually pretty good. Marquette,
yeah.
like these basketball schools, these big basketball schools. I don't see them faltering in the lights of the March Madness. So I wouldn't be surprised if teams like that make a really deep run, Sweet 16, Elite Eight type runs. But I mean, if I have to throw out a way too early prediction, I think you're either going to see. I think you're either going to see like I don't even know. Like K State's playing really good basketball this year.
They played
So I
really
think
well this year.
I
They
think
they
so.
brought
I'm,
took Kansas to the brink a few nights ago. I don't know when that was exactly.
yeah, it's one of those years where I feel like there's not a team that's way above and beyond the rest of the field. Like Houston only has 2 losses, but
Yeah, but
I
they
still
play in a
feel like
weak
they can slip up
conference
every
right
night.
now, so
So I mean, we'll see.
yeah. I
It'll be
mean,
interesting for.
it
We'll get a
really
taste here when
it real
the
it really is a year where it's
conference.
anyone's game for sure.
Yeah. When the conference tournaments start, we'll get a little bit of a taste of who's gonna be able to
Yeah,
make a run and who's not.
yeah. I mean, as much as I'd love to see it, uh, I just don't see Mizzou making it too awful deep. Maybe they'll surprise me and make an Elite Eight, but I don't see them getting past the round of 32 to be honest. Because our inconsistency is just absurd. We live and die by the three so bad. It's annoying because we'll go from putting 90 up on Tennessee or whatever we did to them to losing by 25 to Texas A&M. It's infuriating, and a lot of it's because we live and die by the three. Aaron, you've watched a lot more Mizzou than I have this year. What do you think's the big problem with them? Just a quick little section.
Um, they have solved some of their problems that I noticed early on in the season. Like, they're heavy into pressure, so they'll usually have someone at least following, not just letting the guy bring the ball up the court. So they like to trap, sometimes in the corners, and they're big into steals. They love to jump passing lanes, and that leads to trouble. That led to trouble against Kansas early on in the season, leaving guys wide open for jump shots. So they've solved some of that. They've gotten a little bit better about that, but Mizzou's not big enough. I mean,
Yeah,
our tallest player is like 6'7", 6'8". So
right.
we have trouble rebounding in half the time. It doesn't even seem like we're really trying to rebound. If it falls in our hands, then great. We're just trying to get out in fast break as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really Mizzou's biggest problem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the size definitely doesn't help. I think that's another reason why we live and die by the three so much. But it's just if we're not hitting threes, we're kind of screwed. If we go 2 for 20 in the first half from three, it's game over. We've already lost at that point. So it's gonna be interesting to see, especially once we get into conference tournament play, which I actually want to talk about a little bit here. Uh, Obviously, the conference tournaments where we kind of get to see who nuts up or shuts up. Uh, like I kind of referenced earlier, SEC and Big 12 seem like those two tournaments are going to be absolute dogfights to see who comes out on top, uh, as champion of each conference. But what do you think is what is the conference? Which I feel like this is kind of going to be an easy answer for both you because Aaron, you're going to be probably say the SEC. Siege, you're probably going to say the Big 12. What's the tournament that people should be looking at more though? Like, what do you think is going to be the most entertaining out of all of the conference tournaments we've got coming up these next couple weeks? Aaron, start with you.
Entertaining or like what we'll get the most information out of?
Go ahead and give me
Like,
both, I guess,
run.
because like people want to be entertained, but people also want they want to be informed. So
I would probably say the Big 12 would be the most entertaining. They're probably the most stacked up and down.
yeah, I
The
mean
the
they've got
SEC, you've kind of got like the top 5 or 6 teams, and the others are just kind of they're just kind of there.
mm, that's true. Once you get
Um,
past like the middle of the SEC, it's kind of weak.
yeah.
I would say the Big 12. Just I mean the same answer as Aaron.
Yeah.
They're the most stacked top to bottom, and who's going to be playing in that tournament. So, and again, like I said, um, I mean we'll see how the teams play at a neutral site.
Yeah,
It's going to be the best basketball that you're going to be able to watch before the actual tournament starts. So,
right.
um, and it's going to be one of those things where whichever team goes in there and wins that is going to have a lot of experience for the actual tournament because I mean they're going to be battle tested because it's just so tough to win in the Big 12 in basketball right now.
Do you think we're going to learn a lot from the Big 12, like more from the Big 12 or from the SEC? Because the SEC, I feel like maybe a little bit more even playing field between the those teams that are in contention. Whereas, like, well, actually, no, that's not really true. I don't know. I just do you think either of the two is going to be more informative, or do you think just the conference tournament weekend as a whole
It's
is going to give us a bigger picture?
just conference tournament weekend. I mean, I think we kind of have a good idea of who, you know, Alabama is, who A&M is, who Tennessee is, who Missouri is. And kind of same with the Big 12. You know who Kansas is. They've kind of really found their stride later this season. You kind of know who K-State is. So I think some of these other conferences that we're kind of on the fence about, that maybe not the biggest conference or that have the best competition, seeing it all being put on the line, and if the teams at the top can really put away uh, the other teams in that conference, then I think maybe that'll give us a more clear picture as to how they might do in the tournament.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do my best to try to keep an eye on tournament play uh, once that gets going, just so I can kind of get a better, because I want to beat you two in our March Madness bracket and Joe in our March Madness brackets. So I gotta lock in, get some information here, figure out who's winning, who's losing, stuff like that. My door just closed behind me. That freaked me out. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun to see, you know, what happens here down the stretch of not only the regular season, but then obviously also going into conference tournament play as well. Um, but I guess that'll do it for us in the college basketball realm. I was kind of hoping Joe would have joined us by now, but we'll go ahead and get into some NBA. We'll leave the award predictions for the end of the segment. That way, hopefully, Joe's here by now. I guess we'll start with Damian Lillard dropping 71 points last night. Um, it's the second time this year someone's dropped 70 plus. It's the third time in the last 5 or 6 years, I think, ever since Devin Booker's been in the league at least, because he was the one who did it a few years ago. But definitely our third 70 plus point game in the last decade. Scoring seems to be as easy as it's ever been in the NBA, and I just kind of want to get your guys' opinions on it. I was hoping for Joe's too, but do you think the scoring being as easy to come by these days is more to do with the talent of the offensive side of the ball, like the players who, the bucket getters on the offensive side of the ball. Do you think they're just more talented, or there's more of them these days than there was back in like the '90s, the '80s, the early 2000s even? Or do you think defense is just to the point now where it's so lazy that we're seeing not only people scoring 70 points nowadays, but we saw also, I think last night, maybe 2 nights ago, it was like a a regular season NBA game, not an All Star game, that had a total of like 320 plus points, like something we haven't seen in decades. Like it was absurd how many points was scored. Do you guys think this is more due to the talent increase in the league, especially on the offensive side of things, or do you think defense is just so little cared about now that these are just common occurrences?
I'll
Well,
chime in real quick.
go ahead,
Oh,
Steve.
you got it.
Yep.
I think honestly, what it comes down to is the product that the NBA wants to put out. You can't tell players to go play defense and then have a rule in place where you can't do
Hand
anything
check.
but one-on-one.
Yeah.
And one, yeah, like literally, it's just everybody's out there playing one-on-one.
Uh-huh.
Like 5 different guys playing one-on-one on the same court. That's literally what it is, because
Pretty much.
you can't play defense in a zone. Like, I mean, it's hard to play defense in that kind of environment. Like if you go watch a European game, they can do all that. There's
Yeah.
people in the paint all the time, like just hanging out in the paint, guarding the paint, and so it's hard to um, play defense in a manner like that. As well as, I mean, all these ticky tack fouls that you're getting nowadays, where like if you just, I don't even know, some of the fouls that get called are just absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, that's the other thing. Like offensive players are looking for fouls so they can get to the line and stuff like that too. So I don't know. It just kind of comes down to what the NBA wants to put out, and we are seeing people shoot the three ball a lot more. So that already, 1 extra point per possession. So it's just kind of where it's headed.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, like Siege said, the prevalence of the importance of the 3-point shot in today's game is so much more than it used to be. I mean, you used to just have, like JJ Redick. He was a sharpshooter. He was a specialist. There weren't many, pure shooters on a team. So now everybody can shoot the three. And extra point of possession, so many more threes being chucked up, that you're going to get higher scores. That, and like Siege said, you can't play defense like you used to. And I think partially, you can't play defense like you used to, so that leads to people not taking as much pride in their defense, so they don't necessarily maybe don't try as hard.
Yeah, and
So
by no means am I saying Damian Lillard's not, talented enough to score 70 points. Because, I mean, I think Damian Lillard is one of the most talented point guards we've ever seen in the history of the NBA, at least top 10. Um, so, I definitely think that, I mean, he played the freaking Rockets, for goodness sakes. The Rockets, they don't hardly play offense, let alone play defense. So, I mean, he didn't exactly do it against the best competition. He did it probably against the worst competition in the league, actually. Uh, but I mean, he almost broke the record for most threes made in a game. He had 13. The record's 14 with Klay Thompson. So he was dropping he was dropping buckets. He was scoring from everywhere on the court. I mean, he only had 14 free throws out of those 71 points, so it's not like, he was just drawing fouls and getting to the line every possession. He was working for his buckets. And he's probably one of the best pure bucket getters we have in the league right now. Probably the second or third best 3-point shooter behind Stephen Curry. especially in clutch time. But that didn't really matter in this game because they won by like 20 plus. But it is hard to look at the defense being played these days, though, and not kind of make any sort of like not factor that in at all to these higher scoring averages that we're seeing and all this good stuff. But it does make the game more exciting. I will say that there's a reason basketball is the fastest growing sport in the world. It's because it's exciting to watch. People want to watch it, and people want to watch it because Damian Lillard's out here scoring 71 points, or Donovan Mitchell's out here scoring 71 points, or Devin Booker's out here scoring 70 points, or Jason Tatum's scoring 60. Like, people want to see the best players in the league put on a show, and that's what happened with Damian Lillard. I mean, he put on a show. He scored from everywhere on the court. Uh, didn't have to rely on a lot of fouls to get his points. Just an absolute masterclass by Damian Lillard. Maybe chucked up a few shots towards the end, uh, but I think that was more trying to get that 3-point record. But moving on from that, uh, news coming out that Kevin Durant is expected to make his Phoenix Suns debut this Wednesday, which this would be dropping on a Tuesday, so it would be the day after this. It would be tomorrow if you're watching this on the day it dropped. Um, what do you expect for KD's Suns debut? Do you expect him to uh, kind of gel right in? Do you expect there to be kind of a little bit of a learning curve that they're going to have to get over? I'll start with you, Aaron. Do you think that Kevin Durant's just going to come in and fit seamlessly, kind of like he did in Golden State? Or do you think it's going to be a little bit more, they've got to work on how to play together and stuff like that?
I don't think it's going to be as seamless as Golden State because didn't he have, an off season
I suppose.
with Golden State,
You could say.
whereas he's coming in mid-season, end of the season. So there's going to be a learning curve, feeling each other out, getting a feel for how each other likes to play the game. I mean, chemistry is a very underrated thing, I think. But I mean, KD's KD. He's going to go out and he's probably going to get 25. He's going to make it look easy, and everybody's going to be shaking their heads like, how'd the Suns get this for so little?
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best players in the league, and somehow the Suns, who were just a title contender 2 years ago, really the last 2 years, I guess, but their doors got blown off last year in the playoffs. So, but they were in the finals 2 years ago, only 2 wins away from winning it. Now they got one of the best players in the league. So, Siege, I know he hurt your heart, kind of referenced in the last episode, but do you think KD's gonna, put on a show in his first game for the Suns? Do you think he's gonna kind of take some time to mesh with Devin Booker and Chris Paul? What are your expectations?
I expect him to just go out there and play basketball. Like, I think he's at a point in his career where it's not like hard for him to get along with new teammates or anything like that. I think he'll just go in there and play his game, and whatever happens in his first game with them. He's going to go out there and play his game and figure out what they can do better down the stretch or after that game and down the stretch. So I think it's just one of those things where you have to see what you have and then kind of look back and be like, okay, maybe this works well, this doesn't work well. Like, we don't have to change anything, or maybe we have to change our game plan. Like, you don't really know until you see it on the floor. So I think that's kind of going to be how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a pretty typical KD performance, probably like 25 plus points, 7 plus rebounds, 4 to 6 assists, give or take. Um, Nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. I mean, he's got a little bit of a rapport with Chris Paul through probably All Star games, I'm assuming, as well as maybe the Olympics they played together. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But um, obviously, him and Chris Paul, they're veterans at this point. They've been doing this forever. they know how to win games in the NBA. I think they'll be perfectly fine. Devin Booker, I think, has really shown that he's matured over the last couple years since losing the finals. I think he's ready to finally, get that monkey off his back and win that title that eluded him a couple years ago with Chris Paul. Chris Paul's obviously been fighting for that title his entire career, hasn't quite gotten that chip yet. So I'm expecting a lot. I'm expecting KD to really be a driving force for that Suns team and lead them to the finals, if not at least the Western Conference Finals. So, um, sticking in the West, we got the Lakers over in Los Angeles. Since they made all those trades at the deadline, sent Russ off to Utah, who then got bought out. Now he's playing for the other LA team, Clippers. But they got back D'Angelo Russell. They got back Jared Vanderbilt. They got back Malik Beasley. They traded Patrick Beverly for Mo Bamba. They already traded for Rui Hachimura a little bit before the deadline. They made a ton of improvements to their roster. Obviously, they're way deeper than they were prior to the deadline, but not only that, they also have way better shooting. The defense has been improved a little bit. Obviously, Jared Vanderbilt showed last night. He's a defensive freak out there. He can guard basically 1 through 5. Dude's an animal. But kind of concerning for the Lakers was LeBron going down with a potential ankle injury, it may have looked like. He was grimacing, clutching at his ankle, claiming that he heard something pop. He did end up finishing out the game, though, playing through the rest of the game. Lakers ended up winning. They're 2-0 since the trade deadline. But LeBron noticeably limping in the tunnel after the game. So some concerns there. But as far as the trade acquisitions go, it seems like they were the perfect recipe for this disaster that was brewing in Los Angeles, with Russell Westbrook being the point guard for this team. What do you guys think is the ceiling for this Lakers team going forward? Now that they've made these additions, they brought in D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt being the key additions, as I mentioned earlier. But I guess I'll start with you, Siege. What are your expectations as far as at least the ceiling that this Lakers team has at this point since making those trade acquisitions? But also given that LeBron got hurt in their most recent game last night, whether or not it ends up being, long term or anything like that, I don't know. LeBron's a freaking
Well,
nature.
it's being reported that he's supposed to miss a significant chunk of their playoff push.
Wait, what? Oh, really? Where did you see this? I did not hear this news. This is
All
breaking
over
news
the
to me.
internet.
LeBron ankle.
He's feared to be out several weeks with a right
Yeah.
foot injury.
What I heard was like 2
Per-
to 3 weeks.
Waj. So I don't think their chances look great, especially since AD's probably going to go down here soon. So
That's mean.
they probably don't have the talent to make up for losing their 2-star players.
That's a blow. Yeah, that's a pretty significant blow. Well then, going off of that, what do you think, Siege? Do you think that the Lakers have any shot at making the playoffs now, with LeBron potentially missing, half if not more of the last 20 games of the season?
Yeah, I don't. With that news, I don't see them making it. The only thing I could see that's like a positive out of it is if these group of players can figure out how to play without him for now and scratch off a few wins here and there. Like, when he comes back, then maybe that makes them better and they can actually win a bunch of ball games and get to the playoffs. But I think that's a big enough blow to where I can say that I don't think they're going to end up making the push.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Definitely did not know that was a thing going into this podcast, so that was news to me. Thank you, Aaron, for breaking that for at least me. I'm sure people watching this by this point have heard the
You
unfortunate
can call me Adam
news.
Chester.
But I guess Aaron, then take it away. What do you think this means for the Lakers' playoff chances now that LeBron could potentially miss significant time?
Well, I mean, like I said, AD's gonna go down here shortly because he's like that guy from SpongeBob. His bones are made of glass and his skin's made of paper.
The guy was
So,
born with glass bones and paper skin.
so I don't see them really making a significant push without either of those two.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I'd say it'll probably end up being a pretty close race between the Trailblazers and Pelicans, and I think the Thunder will actually surpass the Lakers.
Well, we dropped our last 3 games, so I don't know about that.
Doesn't matter.
I have faith in the Thunder, actually. I think the Thunder might sneak in as the 10 seed. But, yeah, I mean, I did not know that. I was actually coming in here to begrudgingly talk highly about the Lakers, but after hearing this news, that freaking sucks, guys. I'm sorry. You guys can't seem to catch a break. Y'all can't seem to catch a break over there.
Thought about the Lakers.
Maybe that's why Joe's not here. That's what it is. Joe's too busy crying himself to sleep that LeBron is out. So
You know what it was? They had the temperature too hot in there, so he was getting overheated, sweating a lot. He came down, his foot slipped a little bit 'cause there was sweat dripping on the floor.
mm,
And he was on the ground holding his foot, and then he had a cramp. He had a cramp in his other calf. So
that sucks. I actually hate calf
it was
cramps.
it was
It's unfortunate.
really a miracle that he finished the game.
Honestly, I thought he was full of crap whenever he finished the game. I was like, typical LeBron being a drama queen. But I was wrong, so I'm sorry, LeBron. I apologize.
You see LaMelo Ball got hurt
Is there-
too?
Yeah.
Again?
It looked like he grabbed his shin.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird thing. Like it wasn't his knee. It didn't look like it was his like hamstring or anything. He like grabbed his shin.
It was like a non-contact. He just kind of fell over while making a dribble move, and grabbed his shin.
He crossed himself up, broke his own ankles.
Yeah,
Hey,
broke his own shin
when your
splint.
handles are as good as his, sometimes that happens.
But he was wearing those like shin splint compression sleeves too. So I wonder.
That's interesting.
It was weird.
Well, sticking in LA and sticking with depressing storylines, the Clippers are 0-2 since Russell Westbrook has been added to the roster. Obviously, this has not been great for the whole narrative around Russ right now. It's definitely looking like it may have been his fault with the Lakers. I don't subscribe to that notion. I believe it was a multitude of factors. I do not think Russ was even the most impactful of those factors, though. But that's beside the point. Moving to the Clippers. They are 0-2 since he has been added. He played really well in his first game, aside from the 7 turnovers. He had 14 assists, though, so still a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Pretty good. Not going to lie. But then in this last game, he was sat down on the bench for the end of the fourth quarter as well as overtime period. Kind of looking like it's already a concerning situation over there for him. And I had just picked them to make the Western Conference Finals in our podcast last week. So I'm not feeling so great about that pick at the moment. But I have faith. I think Russell Westbrook, Eric Gordon were both really good additions for that squad. They are already really deep with Robert Covington, Norman Powell. They also added Mason Plumlee, as I brought up last week. So I think it's a really deep team um, that has potential to make it far. But at the same time, they are still the Clippers, and they have a tendency to fizzle out come playoff time. So I'm kind of hoping you guys would talk me off the ledge a little bit here today. Don't really think it's going to happen, but I'll ask you guys anyways. Siege, what do you think of the Clippers starting 0-2 with Russell Westbrook? Do you think that's something to be concerned about?
Yeah, I think
Good.
so. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be concerned. It's more of like I've been having the same thoughts about Russell Westbrook since he got deserted by KD and OKC.
He's Oklahoma City's favorite son. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, not mine. Oh,
Oh.
like, okay, I respect his game, all that good stuff. Like, I can't do the stuff that he does. Obviously, I'm not the best athlete out there. But the thing is, like, whenever him and PG were in OKC, like, you could see spurts of like really good stuff happening. But at the same time, Russ was starting to decline. He was moving on from his prime. He wasn't attacking the rim like he once was. He started to try to shoot the three a little bit more, started hitting none of them, and turning the ball over a little bit more than he used to. So I was actually one of the people that was like, yo, why don't we trade Russ away? Because if we trade him away, at least we'll get something for him. And
Chris
then
Paul was that something.
that ended up happening. Me and old Sam Presti were thinking the same, and that ended up happening. So
I remember you were at my house whenever the last game Paul George and Russell Westbrook played together.
yeah, it was.
Got locked up
But
by Joe
yeah,
Ingles.
so, I mean, I don't know. I think him and PG didn't do the best things at OKC, but you can see flashes of really good stuff happening. Hopefully,
I mean, Paul George
for
was
the
top
Clippers'
3 in
sake, it
MVP
ends up
voting
working.
one of those years. So
Yeah, yeah, but it never amounted to anything with those two on the floor, like
yeah.
in the long. So
To be fair though, y'all didn't have the best depth. The Clippers have significantly better depth than y'all had at that point.
well, that's true, but we'll see how it works out in LA with them also being a few years older.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps probably having Kawhi as opposed to Carmelo Anthony. So
Melo.
Mellow, Thunder Mellow. That didn't last long, but it was cool when it
It
happened.
was the time to be
Yeah.
an OKC Thunder fan.
It
For
was
sure.
it was weird. Carmelo Anthony in a Oklahoma City Thunder jersey is weird, but it happened for a whole season. So, Aaron, what do you think? And your limited knowledge of the NBA, do you think Russell Westbrook and the Clippers starting off 0-2 at the beginning of their partnership together is a bad thing? Or a bad sign, I
No,
should
I
say.
mean,
Obviously, it's a bad thing, but is it a bad sign?
no, I mean, who were their last two opponents? Was it the Nuggets and the Kings? I mean, so those are like two top teams in their conference.
I love the Kings, by the way.
I do too. Um, so I don't think it's necessarily a omen of doom or anything. It's feeling out stage. He's had trouble finding his place on teams, especially in LA. Especially not being the superstar that he once was. So I think, maybe he'll find it now. Vying for, potentially being a sixth man. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's the end of the world. They played some good teams, and I guess we'll just see where they go from here.
Yeah, I feel bad for the dude at this point. I just want him to win somewhere now so that people don't continue to blame him for their problems. It's annoying. But last team we'll talk about. Dallas Mavericks added Kyrie Irving towards the end of the deadline. They have not exactly had the best working relationship either. Um, they're 3-4 since the Kyrie edition. 3-3 in games he plays, though he did miss one. But more concerning than that, they're 1-4 in their last 5 contests. It's looking like this Luka and Kyrie thing has taken a little bit to work itself out. In last night's game, we saw an end of game play, inbound play where Luka and Kyrie weren't on the same page. That seems to be a potential reoccurring event since Kyrie was brought into Dallas. I kind of want to see your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think that this is something they can work through and maybe resolve before in time for the playoffs and make a run at the title, or do you think this is something that maybe they would have to go into an off season before they could actually resolve? And mind you, that would require Kyrie Irving to sign an extension with the Dallas Mavericks because he's not signed through next year. His contract's over at the end of this year. So if this is something where Luka and him have to figure out in the offseason, there's a chance that Kyrie's not here for the offseason. Siege, what do you think? Is this something they can work through before the playoffs hit? Because if not, this may never work at all, and Kyrie may leave town in the summer.
Well, I think they just need to figure out who's bringing the ball up the court. I mean, Luka's he plays on the ball. Like, that's how Luka plays.
Right.
Same with Kyrie. Like, they both have the same play style, so they just have to figure out a balance of who's like their roles, I guess. Not necessarily like their roles because they're both superstars, but like figure out a balance to where it works, because if they both want the ball at the same time, it's just not always going to work out in their best favor. So they just got to figure out that, and I think they'll be in a better spot. But other than that, I don't really have too much to add.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron? Do you think the Kyrie addition? Obviously, they need to resolve it if they're going to play together at all. Do you think they can do it before the regular season's over, or at least in time for the playoffs? Or do you think it's something where they're going to have to flirt with possibly losing Kyrie in the offseason?
It's a tough one. So late in the season, two very ball-dominant players. I mean, this is a very different situation than what, Kyrie kind of walked to in Brooklyn, where KD obviously had experience going and playing with two other superstars, and Steph and Draymond Green. I mean, Klay Thompson, but so maybe Luka's not quite there yet to get on the same page as playing with another superstar like Kyrie is. Maybe it's not Kyrie, maybe it's Luka. I don't know if we really know at this point. So
yeah,
just gotta wait and see. Another one. You just gotta wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie Irving's the best player that Luka's ever played with in the NBA, for sure. Probably ever, if we're being honest. Outside of the All-Star games, those don't count. So it is definitely a tough situation for him to be in for the first time, especially with a guy with the personality of Kyrie. I can atone as a Celtics fan. It looks really good on paper, but man, when you plug it in, it doesn't work like it's supposed to. It don't work like it's supposed to. I don't know why. I don't know why it breaks, but it does. Every single time. The only person who's ever kept him in check is LeBron. He leaves LeBron, goes to Boston, blows that place up. That place looks like a dumpster fire. Thank goodness Brad Stevens, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown are able to save the team after Kyrie, leaves it in flames, and they end up making a title run a few years later, and now they're the best team in the league. But goes to Brooklyn, tells KD, "This is us, man. We got this. We got this. You and me, thick and through thick and thin. You and me, we got this through everything." A season goes by where Kevin Durant doesn't play because he can't because he's healing that Achilles injury. Kyrie plays a little bit, but he doesn't even play in the playoffs because it's not worth his time. Get through that season. Next season comes up. This is supposed to be the year where KD and Kyrie take over the league. Not only that, they also add James Harden during the season. So it looks like those three are teaming up in Brooklyn, going to take over the league. Ends up falling apart. Doesn't work out. Partially due to Kyrie Irving's stubbornness. But ultimately, I think it was just wrong place, wrong time. But you can't ignore the common denominator in those two teams being Kyrie Irving, who comes into town, blows crap up, and moves on. He did that with Boston. Boston looked like they were ready to take that next step. He comes in, they take a step backwards. Does that with Brooklyn right afterwards. Brooklyn looks like they're ready to take that next step. He comes in, they take a step backwards. It's very possible he does that this year in Dallas. Dallas made a Western Conference Finals run last year, ended up losing to the eventual champion Golden State Warriors. But they made it a lot farther than a lot of people thought they would with just Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson. Kyrie Irving comes in. It doesn't look great at first. If they lose in the first or second round and Kyrie leaves town, all of a sudden they lost Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith for nothing. And they're left hanging out to dry. And I think that's Kyrie's MO at this point. I think that's very possible it happens. If they don't figure this out by playoff time, I think Kyrie leaves town and Luka's left to pick up the pieces. And I don't think that's a good situation for him. So, hopefully they figure it out in time for the playoffs. And hopefully Kyrie can finally be happy playing basketball somewhere. That's all I hope for him at this point. Because he's been miserable for the last who knows how many years it seems like. I just want the dude to be happy. So, I guess we'll save our award predictions for next week. Hopefully Joe can join us. I'm going to go ahead and actually, Siege, do you have any F1 you want to talk about this week? Joe mentioned that there may have been like some race this past weekend. I don't know.
No race, but testing just finished up. It seems like everybody's kind of in the, at least at Bahrain, they're kind of in the 131, 132 lap time. That's about kind of where everybody is.
Okay.
Red Bull's looking really strong. Mercedes is looking really strong, just like always. Alfa Romeo's looking pretty strong, which is kind of surprising. Ferrari's a little bit behind Mercedes and Red Bull, but the rest of the teams are a little bit off the pace from those top three teams. So that's just kind of how it panned out in testing this week.
All right. Well, yeah, I gotta wrap this up because I gotta take a pee so bad right now. So go ahead and get you our random sports fact of the week. Baseball player Ken Griffey Jr. is allergic to chocolate. Despite this, a chocolate bar was named after him. Ken was also nicknamed the Kid and held a record of hitting over 600 home runs during his career. He was also one of the best players noted for his athleticism. So, Ken Griffey Jr. was allergic to chocolate, and that didn't stop him from becoming one of the best hitters in the history of baseball. So, keep your dreams alive, kids. Anything's possible. It doesn't matter what you're allergic to. You can overcome the odds. But don't try to fight your allergies because just don't. That's not good. But that'll do it for us here at Swivel Chair Sports, the most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. I've been your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle.
Wait.
What's up?
LaMelo Ball suffered a fracture in his right ankle.
Oh, interesting.
Really? So is that that's probably out for the year at this point in the season, especially with them not playing for anything. Well, right before closing, folks, you heard it here. LaMelo Ball's more likely than not out for the season. Charlotte Hornets didn't really have a chance at making the playoffs anyways, so not really a huge hit for them. But I really got to pee, so we really got to wrap this up. I have been your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle. This has been Swivel Chair Sports, the most unprofessional sports pod. What now?
Nothing.
I'm about to pop. This has been Swivel Chair Sports, the most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. I've been your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle. My co-host today, Aaron and Siege. Joe couldn't make it tonight. Hopefully makes it next week. Go ahead and say bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes, I was about to mention that. Thank you, Siege. Make sure to like and subscribe if you made it this far into the video. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a great week, and hope this finds you well. Deuces.